Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For St. Pete's Sake. My name is Christian Hotchkiss, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host and amazing now president of the Stonewall Democrats of Pinellas County, Laura Lee Gherkin. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Christian. You are, for those who are just listening and aren't watching, Christian is sitting outside tonight, and he just has a really great little backdrop going on. So I'm a little envious of you.
Got the nice greenery. It's a cool and crisp 86 degrees outside, so I decided to enjoy it today. So hopefully the background noises aren't too bad. There might be a couple of golf carts driving around every now and then, but it should be fine.
I'll take care of that in post.
Perfect. And we have a guest today. I am so happy. So glad to see a guest from the city of St. Pete City Council, Dr. Lindsey Grove. Lindsey Grove, how are you?
I'm doing great. I am in my house because it's still pretty hot out. But I'm doing great. Enjoying the last days of like semi decent weather where I don't feel like I'm gonna die. So this has been really nice, actually.
Yeah, we're still in the preheating phase.
Right, exactly. The
Yeah, this
oven's
is
not
a
all the way turned up
conventional
yet.
oven.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you've got the nice greenery behind you, just like me. I love the indoor
Yay.
plants. They look amazing.
Thank you. I had to cut them back because there was a lot of dead vines on there, so it looks
That's
way
all right.
better.
We don't have to talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. I can't keep a single. You'll notice the one plant that is on my patio right here is fake, so I'm good. The rest of that is all trees, and
Hey,
they're
it's
not
alive
mine.
and kicking.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right, so let's dive right into it. Why don't you give us an introduction of yourself and tell us a little bit more of what you do?
Sure. So my name is Lindsey Grove. I am running for St. Pete City Council District 6. If you're familiar with our districts in St. Pete, District 6 is one of 8. It runs from downtown St. Pete all the way down to Coquina Key. I am a public health practitioner by training. That's what my doctorate is in. So I've worked in many different areas around St. Pete, whether it's at the health department. I've worked at USF St. Pete teaching health sciences. And right now I'm actually the co-owner and CEO of the Hypatia Collaborative, which is a nonprofit consulting firm that does comprehensive nonprofit back office support using a 40 plus network of businesses and consultants in the Tampa Bay area. I've been pretty busy.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I am happy to be on the podcast. Obviously love talking anything St. Pete related. I've been here for 15 years and I absolutely love this city. So thanks for having me on the podcast.
We're
Thanks for
super
being here.
excited to have you for sure. And we are, this is pretty much the beginning of campaign season. We've got primaries going up until August. I know you've been out working for a while already. So
Yes.
why don't you let us know, like, what made you decide to hop into the race for District 6?
Sure. So I had the amazing opportunity to be the president of the local League of Women Voters chapter for 3 years. I've been really active with them since 2017, right after the Women's March. And getting involved with such a legacy organization in the area really opened my eyes to the political landscape here and the opportunity to really do public service in a different way. Again, working in public health, I certainly know the public service side of that, but to also kind of get into civic service was something I was really interested in, and the league really sparked that for me. Um, I will also say too, having lived through COVID, it's become abundantly clear that we definitely need more scientists and more public health practitioners as elected officials to help shape policy. And that's not even just for health related policy, right? We now, I think, definitely understand the impacts of how a pandemic can impact every piece of our society and all the things that touch our daily lives. So having a voice on council to provide that public health perspective, I think, is really important. So those are the reasons why I decided to run. And I'm really excited to represent such a diverse district. Again, we've got downtown, and we've also got South St. Pete and Old Southeast and Coquina Key. So lots of different communities with lots of different demographics. And I think we certainly need somebody on council for this particular district that can navigate, and truly represent all of those communities.
Yeah, it's so interesting. People with their public health backgrounds really, during COVID, just like were thrust into the political end of it, where, a lot of the public health people I know were just, in the background doing the policy and making sure. And so very much thrown into the political deep end, very deep end
Yeah.
with
Yes.
COVID. And I just love to see the activism that it's inspired, not only with you, but, I'm from Ohio, so, our former, she was the oh gosh, I don't even remember what she was, like, the physician for Ohio. She's running for go Dr. Amy Acton, she's running for governor now.
Being amazing.
Yeah, and I'm so excited for her, and then up in Michigan, Doctor Abdul Al-Sayed, he's a public health professional too, and I know he ran for governor before, and I can't remember what he's running for now. I think Senate in Michigan, but yeah, he's, back on the ballot, and I love that because you guys have, like, the public health background is, like, you obviously have the science portion of it, like, what a germs and things
Yeah.
are,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you also have that policy part too of, like, here's how we implement these plans and here's how we do them, and it's such a great, like, confluence of skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. A lot of people ask me because I have Dr. Grove on my, Dr. Lindsey Grove on my yard signs, and they're like, "Oh, are you an MD?" And I'm like, "I'm not an MD." But I like to say I don't diagnose people, I diagnose communities. And so a lot of the work I do intersects with things like social psychology, sociology, anthropology, right? The study of people and behavior. And those are really important skills to have when you're thinking about policy work, because policy impacts behavior for decades and even more. And so having that additional lens, I think, would really provide us with just better policy making, especially at the local level where this is, you know, the this is the political arena that touches people's lives most directly. Um,
Absolutely.
I was just at the budget meeting yesterday, and they're wanting things like complete streets. They want to see better sidewalks. They want safer traffic patterns and roadways in South St. Pete. We have, some of the highest pedestrian death rates in South St. Pete. And that's I mean, if you want to talk about a direct public health issue, but it's also city planning. It's also transportation. It's infrastructure. So having that lens and really understanding how just even putting in a crosswalk can have an incredible impact on a community and how it accesses different parts of it, I think is really important to have a person on the dais to be able to, articulate that to voters, but also to
Yeah,
craft policy that really impacts people's lives.
absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and the district that you're running for is actually a personal to me because I lived there for several years.
Nice. Where did
So
you live?
I lived in Coquina Key, just around the corner, a little apartment building right there. But yeah, it
Nice.
was not directly in Coquina Key. I was like on the,
Yeah.
4th Street South
Yep.
right
Yep.
there.
Yep. Yep.
But I lived there for a couple of years, and that community it's so diverse, and it's so you encompass a little bit of a lot of South St. Pete, but you're
Yeah.
right on the edge of where it kind of breaks off into the really really rich parts and the not so rich parts, but you still have that
Yes.
diverse
Yes.
community.
Yes.
And what are your goals for that district? What would you like to see specifically? Because I know a lot of people have conversations about like the food desert and
Yes.
things like that. So what are your goals for that?
It's a great question. So I live in Roser Park, which is, again, actually the start, I would say, of South St. Pete if you're going down MLK or if you're going down 4th Street. And, I've lived here for 12 years and I've seen a lot of change, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if y'all have seen the, yes. Yeah. And I was going to say, we're also a part of the Southside Community Redevelopment Area, right? So the CRA. And
Okay.
there was a recent report that came out about how much the CRA has changed since its inception in 2015. So you can imagine 10 years, we've seen significant demographic shifts, property value increases, which directly impacts how much money the CRA actually starts to generate, right? Because it's based on property values. And so in 2017, based on those property evaluations, they thought that it only raise, in the next 20 years, about $7 million. They're projected to raise $70 million.
Wow.
So that CRA was really to address blight, to help small businesses, to help residents who needed to rehab their houses. And so I really feel like that is a really good example of the kinds of investment that we need throughout the district. And I wouldn't say that excludes downtown. Downtown has similar but some different needs, I would say, than the rest of the district. But really, overall, what I would like to see is, you know, one, finding creative ways to make our city more affordable. My district has some of the biggest wealth gaps between the folks that live in $1 million condos to the folks that live in 13th Street Heights that are making, at the poverty level, right?
Right.
Um, and all of those people, deserve to live in a city and live with dignity. And so I really think that there's a lot that we can do in terms of ensuring that we're continuing to build affordable housing, but also utilizing those CRA funds to help people stay in the neighborhoods that they live in. Many of those houses need to be updated. We have residents that are aging that can't do the kinds of repair and rehab that they need to one, make sure that their houses are still safe, but also to make sure that they can age in place and that their kids can inherit those houses without, really expensive repairs that need to be made.
Mhm.
One of the things I really would love to see is a limitation or essentially banning the sale of single family homes to private equity I mean throughout the United States, which I know that Congress is working on right now, but I would
Yeah.
love for us to do a pilot here because I really think it has bipartisan support. So
Yeah.
I would love to do a pilot here and just see, what are some of the things that we can do to really preserve what little affordable housing stock we still have.
Right.
Obviously public transit to really help people who maybe can't afford to have a car or car insurance. Helping small businesses. One of my other sort of crazy ideas is to see if there's a way for the city to create a health insurance program that small businesses can buy into. We have a
That's
lot of
so great.
contractors. We have a lot of businesses that, traditionally have very small margins, restaurants,
Restaurants,
retail,
bars.
tourism. A lot of times those are the same, businesses that can't provide health insurance to their employees. So is there a way for us to do that to make sure that people still have access? We know that the, marketplace premiums are going up and that's only going to translate in us paying more when people end up in the emergency room. Um, I obviously want to see better infrastructure. Many of our neighborhoods in District 6 were significantly impacted by the hurricanes of 2020,
Milton. Yeah.
2024. Yes. So, not only have we done deferred maintenance for 20 years on our stormwater systems, but so we need to make sure that they're up to date to today's standards. And then we also need to do preventative work because we've got climate change and increasingly severe storms. And it's not just property damage. We want to make sure that residents are protected and safe. And the last thing that, I would say is something that is like, I don't know, a public health thing for me, and it might not seem like public health on the surface, but I just want people in our city to feel like anybody and everybody is a neighbor. We have become more disconnected from each other. And I think that by providing better support to neighborhood associations, doing more to get residents out and meeting each other, I think the city can actually really create better informal networks of like mutual aid and also really combat some of the apathy that people feel about government, about each other, about, about politics. And I also think it's an opportunity for the city to better market all of the amazing programs that it has that many residents don't even know exist. We're in the middle of a loneliness epidemic. You know, I've noticed even with myself coming out of COVID, I think we all have a little bit of agoraphobia. So
A little
it's
bit.
a little bit, right? Like,
It's
and it is
fair. It's
scary
fair.
out here, you know? People are
It
really
just takes
nervous.
it takes a little bit more energy to get you to, like, leave your
Yes,
house.
it
Yeah.
does. And I think,
Yeah.
we got really used to not leaving our house and, you know, and unfortunately that means that we are beholden to all of the social media, traditional media, digital media, that all of us consume every day instead of going out and, as the kids say, touch grass. You know, go out and meet your neighbors, have a movie night in the park, volunteer at the, local school in your neighborhood. There's all of these different ways to interact with people that I think would really help with our mental health crisis. And just again, like, I'm not going to like pull any punches and say that we are still in the midst of a very tough administration.
Very
and
much.
and I think that
I
there's
don't
an
know what you're talking about.
right? I would say that the only way that we are going to get through this is if we as a community really strengthen our social fabric. I think about, folks that are worried about ICE coming to our community.
Yeah,
It will be up to our local governments to take a stand, but it will also be up to our informal networks of people
exactly.
to make sure that their neighbors are safe. And if you don't know who your neighbor is, you're less likely to stand up for them and make sure that they're okay. So that's something that's really important to me.
That
That's
last part that
awesome
you
because I know for us here in with Stonewall, speaking as like the Stonewall president hat now,
Yeah.
something that I wanted to start in Christian. I know we've talked about it before when he's president too, is model after what they did in the Hillsborough community, Hillsborough County LGBTQ caucuses. They focused on Ybor specifically because that's like the
Okay.
neighborhood over
Yeah.
there and doing
Yeah.
community outreach, not just at an election, not just door knocking saying, "Hey,
Yes.
vote for
Yes.
us," but like going into the community and saying like, "Hey, what's up? What's not working for you? What can we help you with? What can I is there someone that I can help connect you with? A service, a city council, you know what I mean?" So and that I actually just met with the president of the South St. Pete Club down here today to just like
Nice.
talk about get engaging them and doing that because
Yeah.
that is especially in, and we saw this in the 2024 election. You take certain voters for granted,
Yes.
Black men, for example, for decades, and they're gonna leave you, and we can't afford that. And Black women are the backbone of so many things in society,
Yes.
including our Democratic Party, and we can't lose that support. And so I love that what you talk about is going out and meeting people where they are and saying like,
Yeah.
and giving an ask to them,
Yeah.
not you asking something of them.
Right. I mean, I think I think about like here in Roser Park, we have a really active neighborhood association and honestly, neighborhood associations are really the first stop for a lot of people who want to be more civically engaged. And if we can create, more opportunities for people to be civically engaged, I feel like we can create an amazing leadership pipeline, right? For local, especially for like local civic positions. It doesn't even necessarily mean like running for office, but I
Right.
do think that a lot of people who end up running for city council have been neighborhood association presidents, right? Um but I also think too that there is kind of to your point, we have to go out. I mean, part of the reason I started my I declared back in July is because I was like, yeah, well, I was just like, I know that like if I declare later on and I'm going out and I'm just meeting people, it's going to feel way more transactional than it is like if I start early and just really use this as a way to engage with people, hear what they have to say, and then form my campaign around what voters want, what voters are telling me versus being like, "Oh, well, I think I know, exactly what people want." I don't, and I'm happy to like listen. I'm happy to listen to what voters have to say and help and use that to inform policy, to inform my, my campaign platform. And that's really important. I mean, I think about a woman that I met a few months ago who, her thing was, I have a garden in my front yard, and my neighbor across the street, I noticed that, she wasn't mowing her lawn. And the woman across the street was like 83 years old. So she was having a hard time. And essentially the woman I was speaking with went over and said, "Hey, I'm actually going to go out of town, but if you can get somebody to mow your lawn and you can actually talk to the city, they'll bring mulch. I will come in and I will help you set up your own garden, and I will help you, I'll
Oh,
coach you through, how to put the garden together, right?" And the woman did that. And her name is, the woman that I was speaking with, his name's Sandy. Sandy came back. They set up beds. And now that 83-year-old is out in her yard gardening, meeting
love that.
people, providing food for people that might not be able to afford groceries, and interacting with Sandy, who's also doing the same thing. And it's like, it has this, waterfall effect. You don't have to, you don't have to run for office. You can literally just grow a couple of carrots in your front yard and share them with people that need it. It,
Exactly.
again, there's this, I think, opportunity for people to feel engaged and actually feel really better connected, and just feeling better about,
About themselves.
yes, and the world, right? Like, we all feel, I don't know about you, but it's very overwhelming, with in national politics, in Florida state politics,
Yeah,
and even global politics. And there's a real feeling of hopelessness and I think powerlessness. But those very hyper local things can give people a sense of control, give people a sense of purpose, and a sense that they do have some ownership in the health and well-being of their community. So I would love to see more city investment and support for those kinds of projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because when I first moved to St. Pete, I moved in 2020, like right before COVID had really, right before we were in the height of it.
Mhm.
And coming out of that, I made one of my best friends to this day, shout out Ken, who actually lives in your district. So going to be watching this
Oh,
episode for sure.
yeah.
Um, but it was, it just happened by chance. I was out at the bar. He was there. We met through a friend of ours, and it was just
Oh, nice.
that connection is what's missing now, and it's hard to come by. So I'm really happy to hear that. Um, Another thing that you had mentioned is the infrastructure. St. Pete is only growing at this point, and it's
Yes. Yeah.
great that we're bringing in all of these new business or new housing, but we need to make sure that we're bringing in businesses, and we
Yeah.
need to make sure that we're funding the infrastructure for that, the
Yeah.
public infrastructure, public transportation. You mentioned it at the beginning: sidewalks, crosswalks, things like that. So what is your plan to address those issues there? And like I said, with the food desert there in South St. Pete. A lot of people don't have transportation in that district,
Yes.
and they just can't make it to the Walmart that's on 34th Street.
Yeah.
So their only option is pretty much that Dollar General or the Family Dollar right around the corner. So
Yeah.
what's that? What's that for you?
So I think that one of the great things that came out of the budget open house last night was there is funding in next year's budget for complete streets, which complete streets is really about pedestrian safety and allowing people to age in place, right? And also creating multimodal opportunities for people throughout the city. So I think that there will, in order to not only, continue to implement complete streets, the city will definitely have to invest dollars in that, but there's also, the potential to partner with FDOT, with even with the federal government, because there are these sort of, better connected community grants out there to fund some of that. And obviously, St. Pete has been really I would say St. Pete City Council has been really good about partnering with, PSTA. These kinds of infrastructure projects are not cheap. And so, and they take a long time, right? Public infrastructure projects take a long time. And, I would say that continuing to advocate for state and federal appropriations to fund projects like this is going to be really important. Um, and I will say, um, to your point about food insecurity in South St. Pete, one of the exciting things that's happening literally right down the street from me is the Looking Glass Initiative, which is a so there was this derelict building at the end of my street. It's an old plaza built in the 1920s. The gentleman that had owned it for decades. He was actually a former city council member. Um, he would not sell. He was a like very well-known slumlord, and he finally passed away. And John Barquette, who has been a phenomenal force on MLK in the MLK Business District North, bought that property and then actually bought the adjacent property across the street, which will be an urban farm. So they're
Oh,
really
Love
trying.
that.
yes.
Yeah, so they purchased a building right next to the urban farm that's going to be a food pharmacy. So, and that'll be basically, subsidized, packs of food for folks. They're looking at partnering with the St. Pete Free Clinic and also Orlando
Yeah.
Health to have like a clinic there for folks. Um, and this plaza that is getting rebuilt or is getting rehabbed actually will be a spot for a bunch of small businesses. There's a coffee shop that's going in, a bookstore, um a school for kids who want to learn how to code. And there's a couple of other
Oh,
yeah, there's a couple of other there's still actually some brick and mortar or there's some spots still open if anyone's interested. But John was really intentional with making sure that the folks that are in this building are from the neighborhood. Actually, two of the folks, the coffee shop and the bookstore, are my neighbors. In fact, one of them is the president of the Roser Park Neighborhood Association. But one of the things that John was also talking about is it'll be great having this urban farm, but we know that with Tangerine Plaza, there has been so many attempts to put a big box grocery store in that space. And, certainly, one community grocery co-op has done a lot of work to really build momentum to, finally either occupy that space or partner with somebody to occupy that space. And I do think that is a option for people who, have issues with transportation and the ability to get fresh food. I will also say I think there's also opportunities to outfit, current spaces, right? You're right. Like folks having to go to convenience stores, gas stations,
Yeah.
Family Dollars. I mean, these places take WIC, they take EBT. Um, but that doesn't mean that maybe there's an opportunity to maybe outfit them with freezers or fridges that have fresh produce. And maybe
Exactly.
just a small stand and they partner with the urban farm or they partner with a
Right.
produce reseller. I actually worked on a project like that when I'm originally from Michigan. So
Okay.
I know I was like, love another Midwesterner. I worked on a project like that where we had money from USDA, and what we could do is help buy small grocery stores or convenience stores purchase used fridges so that they could actually have produce for the folks that lived in the
Ah,
area if they were in a food desert. And so I don't think that we have to recreate the wheel. I think we just need to be creative.
yes.
Um, and
The
I think
St. Pete
that's a
Youth
really
Farm
cool.
is there.
Exactly. The youth farm is like right over on 18th Ave South. So I think that there's
Shout out to Carla Bristol.
I know, she's amazing. She's amazing. And another great project that's funded through CRA dollars, right?
yep.
Um, that's another potential opportunity. And I think that as a elected official, part of my job is making sure that these folks are connected, that we are, again, not siloed, that we are looking at how we can better collaborate, because right now, that is how we survive. That is how we thrive and become more sustainable, is not through competition, but it is through working together on projects,
Exactly.
making sure that we are, using the assets in our community, to their highest and best use.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think I just have one last question,
Yeah.
which, I'm sure it'll be a big one coming on.
Okay.
Our Rays are back in town
Yes, they are.
for
Yeah. For now. So what,
no
2028, I think is when they're
I think so.
2028.
yeah, I think
I
that's
think
when
so.
Okay.
It's a couple
they're
of years out, but I know that
yeah.
they're looking for some. I think there's rumors about Tampa and Hillsborough, and
Well, it's not
so
just rumors. There's definitely
Oh, I think the
there's some
governor's even
wheels in
trying to get
motion.
them over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
well, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, should let's just assume that they move and like how where are you on the plans that have been presented, like the historic gas plant district and those sort of ideas? Because that, I mean, it's not in your district, but it's
It is
you
in
know
my district.
oh, is it? I wasn't sure if, like, I know
Yeah.
the lines are
It's
weird over
very
there.
weird. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like, Uptown is also in my district. It like goes
Oh,
up it. I
okay.
know. It's like hyper gerrymandered. Anyway, it's
Yeah.
Love
yeah.
gerrymandering and redistricting. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very common here.
Yeah, so what's your approach to, should we lose the raise? I think that, after 2 years without having them here, or a year and a half, it was a big impact to downtown businesses.
Was. It really was. And that's certainly something that's come up in many conversations I've had with folks that are in the Edge District. They're like, man, it's been really tough not having, this regularly scheduled baseball, to bring in traffic. And you had people who had to move because of the hurricanes, or they didn't have that extra income, disposable income to come downtown and spend it at some of the restaurants and all of that. So it was kind of a double whammy, to be honest. Um, for me, I really want to make sure that whatever plan we choose, that it is not fully supported, but it meets the needs of the community. We hear from people, they want affordable housing, they want spaces for small businesses, they want better infrastructure. They also want to honor the legacy of the gas plant district. And so to me, that is the most important thing, like regardless of like how cool the proposals look. My At the end of the day, I want to make sure, because this is a public asset. In fact, like,
Hmm.
I would prefer that we didn't sell the land, that we put it into a land trust, and that way we retain ownership, but we allow folks to develop on it, but we can control, you know, uh, market rate, housing and that kind of thing, right? Market rate,
Yeah.
well, all of that, right? Um, but I really, we're only going to get one shot at this, and it is a lot of in an amazing location in our town. And we are on a peninsula, so we don't really have that much land anyway.
Nope. All right.
So I really want to make sure that not only are we trying to meet the needs of the community today, but we are also thinking about the community of tomorrow. We are growing, but that doesn't mean that we're always going to be growing. And, in 10, 20, 30 years, is that 85 acres going to serve the city that we will be even in 30 years? And obviously that's hard, but I actually think we can make some predictions about that, right? Like, we know that St. Pete's growing, we know that people do want to move here, and we also know that we desperately need affordable housing, public transit, better infrastructure. We also need better third spaces for people to better connect with each other, right?
Yeah.
um so if those are the things that are driving what can go on those acres, I think that's, to me, that's my 2 cents on what should happen with gas plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all of that because it is very important. And it was briefly mentioned, but we do, in some way, no matter what happens, we have to recognize the history of of that land.
Precisely.
And we need to make sure that like the black cemeteries that are there that were just lost
My
and paved
God,
over,
yes.
and
Yeah.
the community that was completely destroyed, you know, and it's very important. I think, and I think a lot of people will agree, especially in that district, that we do redevelop that to something that the community will use, but also recognize what that space has been.
Yeah,
And, you know, I, I don't know the correct word, but make sure that people know what that was and the history behind that land.
for sure.
So that's really important as well. Um,
Yeah. Oh, no, I
I,
was just gonna say, one of the interesting things that I've encountered as I've been canvassing is many of the folks that had to leave the gas plant live in Campbell Park. So
Yeah.
I've been meeting people who are like, yeah, my family lived there and now, we ended up moving over here. And so they are watching to see what
Oh,
happens.
yeah.
I think they are rightfully worried, to your point, about ensuring that, they are acknowledged that this is a complicated history, but it's powerful in that again, we have an opportunity to meet the needs of the community, but also honor and really be honest about the legacy of the gas plant district. Um, I think that I think it's really important uh, that we as a community be honest about all parts of our history, right? That's the only way that we work towards reconciliation, that we work towards healing, is being honest. And I think that that's a huge part of this project, to your point, Christian.
yeah, absolutely. I love to hear that. And you've hit on is something that I've been thinking a lot about, and what I've heard on the from Secretary Clinton recently is what the Democrats and what our party should be focused on moving forward. And she says affordability and accountability, and I want to add another A in there to make it the three A's: affordability, accountability, and authenticity. We need to make sure that we're being
Oh,
authentic.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love
You know,
that.
you had
Yes.
mentioned like you starting your campaign last July and just not, not saying, "Hey, I'm running for this," but just say, "Hey, what's going on? What are your needs? What can I do for you?" And it's I think that needs to be the message of our party moving forward, and
Mhm.
of realistically of anybody who, no matter what your party is. I feel like that's just common sense. So
Yes. Yes, I agree. I think that if we're really thinking about the core, tenets of public service, that is it, right? Like showing up, meeting people where they're at, not engaging in transactional relationship building. Um,
Mhm.
and again, like showing up because you want to show up, not because you're like, oh, later on down the line, I'm going to ask you for a favor. No, that's people sniff that out so easily.
So
Um,
fast.
yeah, and that, yeah, and unfortunately, there's so much of that, right? So I think people get a lot of practice, unfortunately. So, but I really think that we really need to bring that back into politics. And because I really think that's also why people feel so disillusioned, so disempowered,
Mhm.
super apathetic. I mean, there's been multiple times I've met, voters my age or younger, and I've said, hey, because I'm doing petition gathering right now, and I'm like, hey, do you want to sign my petition? Oh, I'm not registered to vote. And I'm like, what? And
Right.
not trying, and I really try very hard not to shame them because that is certainly not the best way to
yeah,
engage
Right.
with people. But I'm very direct in that I'm like, can I ask you why? I really want to understand. And for many of them, they're like, I just feel like politics is I just do not want to engage. I've turned the news off. I don't want to. I just everything is terrible right now, and this is like the last thing I want to do. And so I tell them, I'm like, listen, I get it. It's really tough out here right now. We are all exhausted, but that's kind of the point. The billionaire class is spending a lot of money to make us feel disempowered because we
That
do
keeps
actually
them
have a
in
lot of
power.
power. And, I would say even if you don't care about what's going on at the federal level, even if you are sick of what's happening at the state level, please keep in mind that us at the local level directly impact your lives. You'll
Mhm.
see me at Publix. You'll see me, at the bar downtown. You're not going to see your congressperson there. So you know, I'm just like you, and I want to make a difference, and hopefully that, and sometimes they're like, oh, well, can you give me your information? So I really try. Again, I'm like, I really don't want to shame people. In public health, weirdly, shame does not work in behavior change.
Right.
As a sex educator, shame is not a great tool
Yep. Nope. Yep.
to
Yep.
get people
We've
to
been learning that one the
change
hard
their
way.
ways. But to me, it's just like, I'm just gonna give you the information that I have. This is why it's important to me, and I hope that it becomes important to you. So, yeah,
I'll have to hear that.
yeah.
Right. Well, I think that's a great time to segue into our final segment of the night, our shout out or shut down segment. So, this is where we're going to find something that's fun in the news that we want to shout out and put some shine on, or something that's going on that is kind of lame and sucks, and we want to shout them down. So, we kind of try to like sandwich them if we can. I've decided I have a shout out.
Same
Christian,
for me.
are we all shouting out today?
I have a shout out. Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
perfect. Awesome. Christian, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Well, I have to give a huge, huge, huge shout out to the people of Hungary.
Yes.
And the fact that the chokehold that Orwell, I can't even think of his name right now,
Victor
that
Orban.
Victor
Orban, yeah.
Orban
Yeah.
had on that country is done, is over. The fact that um, before polls even closed, they had 80% of the vote in, and he had lost majorly. And this was after our amazing Secretary of State and Vice President, and both went over there and tried to campaign for him, and
Yeah.
said all of that, and Trump giving him the shout out and saying that he loves Viktor Orban and the type of leader he is, and all of that BS, the bullshit that was spread by them didn't
Mhm.
work. And I just have to give that shout out because and it makes me think of a quote by MLK. The arc of moral justice is long, but it leans towards justice.
Exactly.
And that's what we're seeing, not only there but also here in America with all of the local elections that we've seen. And I just have to give them a huge shout out, and it gives me so much hope, and it gives me so much like happiness to see that, because shit is tough right now and we need all the wins we can get. So
You're not
I
wrong.
just wanted to shout them out.
Oh my God.
Congratulations
Seriously.
on the new government, and I hope it is so amazing, and I can't wait to see what this November looks like. Um, Hopefully we have elections in November, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
right. Yeah. All right, Dr. Grove, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Well, I mean, I would shout out my campaign, but I'm actually gonna, I mean, hey, vote for groveforstpete.com. But the thing I do want to shout out, and because I've been running, I haven't given it as much attention, is I actually have a podcast called Viral, and it is a public health podcast where myself and Megan Albertson, who's a really good friend of mine, just talk about public health topics, public health issues. I am a huge history nerd, so I love to talk about like the history of death certificates or leprosy or a lot of really
Yeah,
weird stuff.
the
But
That's
it's
really
awesome.
interesting stuff.
yeah, so exactly, super interesting and like weirdly very like weirdly
Applicable.
very applicable to the current time we're living in. Hopefully, we don't see, the Black Plague come back, but
Plagues.
who knows with RSM? Like uh but it's a lot of fun. You can find us on Spotify. And honestly, that's kind of like my happy place. I really enjoy that kind of stuff. I, love to nerd out on public health history. So, yeah.
Love it. I love
Awesome.
it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So
All
that
right, and
actually
Madam
ties
President.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say that ties in perfectly to my shout out, because my shout out is just for nerds. Nerds have had the best 10 days because of our amazing Artemis crew. Oh my gosh, just, all the coverage of that was so much fun. The From the playlist, the wake up, call playlist that they would play to, all of their oh god, I can't even talk about the creator named Carol without crying. I mean, it was just such a great, like, 10 days for their whole trip. The fact that it went off, they got to go on their first blast off, like, at the beginning of, like, the window of time was just
Yeah,
is just crazy that that got
yeah.
done, and they got, around the moon safely, and Splashdown went down safely the other day, and it was just like, "Science! Yes!"
We needed
Love it.
we needed this. We really
Yes.
needed
We
the Artemis
really
Yes.
did.
like,
And it gets us one step closer to being back on the moon.
I know,
Precisely.
I know. Have you guys ever watched, For All Mankind?
I haven't.
Have not.
It Okay, it's on Apple TV. It is about what if we lost the space race to the Soviets. It
Oh.
is so good.
Right.
Yes, and so, like, this whole week, I've been thinking about this series because I don't wanna spoil anything, but
Okay, okay.
but if you
Yeah,
want
don't
a
do it.
series where, like, it's about science, but there's obviously a lot of human interest stories, um, it's such a cool premise, and it really does make you think about, um, how these countries pushing each other, like,
Mhm.
and how if things had played out differently, how that would have impacted the space program. So, anyway, just wanted to
Sounds
another
amazing.
shout out, but yeah.
Cool, love that,
Yeah,
love that,
That sounds
awesome. Well, yeah,
amazing.
thank you for the
yeah,
movie reco too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and real quick before we go, before we give our goodbyes, please let our listeners and viewers know where they can find you, how they can find your campaign, everything like that.
Sure. So I am on Instagram at Grove4 FOR St. Pete. I'm also on Facebook, same thing. I do have a website. It's www.groveforstpete.com. I am out canvassing every single weekend, Saturday and usually Sunday. I've door knocked 1,300 doors since October, and I'm very close to our petition goal. Right now, we're the only ones that are gathering petitions in a race of 5.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, we really believe in meeting voters where they're at and really
Yeah.
doing voters deserve the sweat equity.
Yeah.
Um, but we're always looking for volunteers and, of course, time, talent, and treasure. So please check me out. And I guess if you want to see more of my nerdy side, check out my podcast. I also do Nerd Night. I don't know if you guys have ever done Nerd Night.
Yes, I haven't gone to it, but my friend Carly, Carly, Cuoco did the Vulve Genius talk.
It was
Yeah,
so
so good.
good. It was so
Yeah,
good. Yes,
that's my
yes.
girl Carly.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me shout out my campaign. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for hanging out with us tonight on For St. Pete's Sake. We hope today's episode was entertaining and enlightening. Thank you once again to Dr. Lindsey Grove for joining us. You've been a real treat, and we really appreciate your time.
No, I've had a great time. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Please, yeah, Christian's hopping in and out. We got you, buddy.
Sorry. Well, thank you so much. I know we're doing our goodbyes, but thank you so much for coming in. It's been amazing having you here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And yeah, have a wonderful night.
Thanks. Yeah, please remember for everyone to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Substack. You can find us on all of those at forsaint.petesake. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Leave a rate and review to help promote the pod. And we'll be back next week with more stories from people doing the hard work to make our community better. Until next time, for St. Pete's sake, keep pushing for change.